You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
Right now at the Home Depot, shop Spring Black Friday savings and get up to 40% off, plus up to $500 off select appliances from top brands like Samsung. Get a fridge with 0 clearance hinges, so the doors open fully even in tighter spaces in your kitchen. And laundry that saves you time, like an all-in-one washer-dryer that can run a full load in just 68 minutes. Shop Spring Black Friday savings, plus get free delivery on appliance purchases of $998 or more at the Home Depot. Offer valid April 9th through April 29th, U.S. only. See store online for details.
Dropback is kind of the easiest version. Once you master 5, 6, 7, maybe 8-person pass protection, now we got to talk about play pass. We got to talk about play action. And that's where you get into crazy nuance and detail at the league level, because every team is going to do every version of that differently. And so just having a detailed take for that gives guys a huge advantage as they kind of keep going up in levels of football.
Welcome to Football IQ on the Coaching Coordinator Network. This series is about a part of football that matters as much as anything we do as coaches, and that's football IQ. We spend a lot of time talking about scheme, technique, drills, and game plans, but at the end of the day, the players who separate themselves and the teams that play the fastest are usually the ones that understand the game at a deeper level. They can recognize structure, process information, anticipate what is coming, and make better decisions in real time. That's becoming harder to teach. Players today see a lot of football, but they often see it in clips, highlights, and short segments on social media. They're watching plays, but not always learning the game in full context. That's why we wanted to build this series. With Football IQ, presented by American Football IQ, we're going to talk with coaches and teachers of the game about how they develop smarter players, how they train recognition and decision-making, and how they help athletes truly understand what they're seeing. If you want to help your players see the game more clearly and play with more confidence, check out our partner, American Football IQ. They're building tools and resources that help players, coaches, and parents grow their understanding of the game. The link is in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's Omni-Shade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.
Welcome to Football IQ on the Coaching Coordinator Network. Football IQ isn't just plays, it's anticipating defenses on offense, reading routes as a defender, spotting stunts or blitzes before they land. When everyone's fast and strong, the sharpest mind on either side of the ball wins. That's what we're exploring today with the True Master. Joining us is JT O'Sullivan, former NFL quarterback and founder of the QB School. He played 9 seasons in the NFL after a standout career at UC Davis, suiting up for teams like the San Francisco 49ers, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, and more, throwing for over 1,800 yards in the NFL in his career, playing in a number of different offenses. In 2018, he launched the QB School, where his in-depth film breakdowns and QB coaching have helped players and coaches at every level master the mental side of the game. JT, thanks for coming on. Great to have you. How's the QB School going these days?
Fired up. Appreciate the invitation. Love talking ball. QB School is grinding along. Draft season, interesting year draft-wise, but it's that time where off-season people getting better, diving into scheme, X's and O's, and fun spot.
Absolutely. And so obviously consume your content. I'm a member of the Patreon community. Love your breakdowns. It's a lot of fun. I think you throw your personality in there, which is great. But in-depth analysis coming from somebody who's been in a lot of different offenses. I mean, you've had some of the top coaches in the league install offenses for you, and you've had to play, in big stadiums and under big lights. And so when you analyze a player, what kind of goes through your mind, in regards to the feedback that you're giving and how that person might think about that feedback? Kind of what goes through your mind there?
I appreciate the kind words. I guess I don't necessarily look at it from like what they would think of the feedback. I'm looking at it just from my own little lenses that I bring to it. So you touched on, former player, a little bit, former coach, more just like a football fan, a quarterback fan, a fan of the position, someone who probably thinks of themselves as more of a former professional competitor versus, football player, and just kind of overlaying that into my enjoyment of football. So when you say in-depth film analysis, I really appreciate that, because to me, that's the only way it's done. It's so hard to see like a highlight clip, and we live in that society where it's so easy to consume those things. But if you really want to have a deeper understanding of what the hell's going on, you kind of have to be willing to spend the time and peel back the layers and have a deeper understanding than just watching the ball. And it's fun. I'm guilty of watching the ball on broadcast TV, and I enjoy that, on the weekend too sometimes. But if you want to know, what exactly is going on and how the position quarterback is being played at a high level, you kind of have to be willing to sit down and have a deeper understanding of not only the scheme, but also what's happening in real time, and see it in real time and learn from those things. And I just enjoy that, dig the hell out of it. And I try to share that through the community that's kind of enjoys the quarterback school.
Absolutely. Now, I've seen you get on X and you're not afraid to clap back on people. Being somebody that has a background, there's a lot of credibility you bring, right? You've been there, done that. And so when somebody who's uninformed is going to start, making comments that are outlandish, what comes to mind for you, and how do you essentially handle that?
I'm not sure that the clapping back thing on X, sometimes to me, it's just, I use that as a platform for the channel to kind of just share what's going on. And I feel like there is a lot of just kind of keyboard warriors out there who feel like they have a deep understanding because they, watched some highlights or watched a game. And it's easy to blame the quarterback when something doesn't go great, or blame the coach. But when you're actually go look at the film and you try to hold all the positions accountable, you try to have a deeper understanding of exactly what's going on, maybe game wise, situation wise, season wise. I just feel like it gives a more comprehensive, better, deeper, more nuanced, detailed take of what it is. And so if I understand that not everyone's going to do that, it's not for everyone, but it's for me. I like it. And so when I have an opportunity to say, hey, in the nicest way possible on a social media platform, like, hey, like obviously you don't watch the film, because if you watch the film speaks for itself. It's not my opinion. It's me describing the film. And so it's one of those things where I just enjoy trying to provide a more nuanced, detailed take, as opposed to like what I consider more like hot takey or personal, attacks like that. To me, it's just more fun to keep it about the football. But I'm also going to have an opinion about football and really anything centered around quarterback play. And quarterback play takes into account perimeter play, offensive line, pass protection, run blocking, defense, all those things come into it. And so you've got to be able to hold more than one thought in your head and share those thoughts. But, I'm not going to sit there and just have somebody, come sideways for something that I just disagree with.
I love it, by the way. And so that's why I look at it as you have pride in the work that you do, and you know what the heck you're talking about. So I want to dive into some football IQ stuff. You played quarterback across so many different NFL systems. What early moment in your playing career made you realize the mental side of the position was just as important as the physical, and eventually lead you to start the QB school?
I mean, it goes back as far as I can think of it, to be honest with you. I got really fortunate in high school. I had a lot of really great coaches, and that is a testament to my parents putting me in a high school that gave me those opportunities in sports. But then just me kind of finding my lane. Like, going into high school, it wasn't like, oh, I love quarterback play, or I want to be it was just like, I want to play quarterback. Like, I want the ball. And so I got lucky that I had great quarterback coaches. My high school coach was a former Davis quarterback. So I got basically 9 years of Davis quarterback coaching after going to Davis after that. And so just really fortunate in that regard to have a great foundation. And then from there in the league, got really lucky with Mike McCarthy was my first coordinator. He's gone on to be a great head coach, multiple different spots, win a Super Bowl. But the way that he taught offense to me was unique. It was a very two lenses. So the lens of, hey, this is how we run it. This is how we're going to do it in New Orleans. This is what we're going to call it. But then this is also the scheme, the play, the concept, understanding it. Hey, when you go maybe to a different team, they might call it something else. But once you learn how to play the play, you can play that play anywhere. You can speak that language, 6-person slide protection. We can call it 2-jet. They might call it rip Liz. It doesn't matter. You know how to play. You know where the bones are buried. And to be able to take that lens, because before that, it was just, hey, this is my offense. I'm a master of my offense. I wasn't a master of working towards mastery of football. And so Mike opened up that lens, and it was really their quarterback school, what he did quarterback school wise in the offseason, and the time that it took and the kind of daily application to grinding into that stuff that made me kind of realize, oh, I can take this to a deeper level. And it helped me play. I mean, that was the other thing. Like, I wanted to do stuff that helped me play and play longer in the league. And so I was going to do anything I possibly could to make that happen. And I just fell into something that I loved.
Oh, that's awesome. I've heard a lot of good things about Coach McCarthy. And Mike Shepard, was Mike Shepard there at that time when you were there?
Yeah, Mike was my quarterback coach. He was great, super detailed dude, like loved football, loved spending time, was a great teacher. I really enjoyed my time with both the Mikes.
Yeah, I used to do FCA camps with Mike and his son, Brian. Brian was a quarterback, and we would work the camps, be counselors. Mike would be the head coach, and we would sprint to the field for lunch during our lunch hour. We didn't really eat lunch. We'd want to go get trained by Mike. That was a lot of fun, just working on timing throws and working on resetting our feet and being disciplined with our eyes. And so I didn't piece that together, but I've spent some time with Mike, and even, we were actually on the phone a couple months ago and kind of catching up, but that's awesome. Small world. So you coached at Patrick Henry High School, and here in San Diego, famous alum, Ricky Williams, but that program hadn't done much, right? I mean, if you just look at the records, when you took over that program, it's skyrocketed, relatively speaking, right? Where it had been. I know you're not going to, pat yourself on the back there, but you did a phenomenal job there. From a football IQ standpoint, working at Patrick Henry and onboarding new coaches and then bringing on players, where was their football IQ at, when you took over that program?
I'm not going to necessarily downplay, what the staff did before me there. But to me, I was going in there not really worried about what they had done before, what their culture was before, why they maybe weren't having as much on-field success, or what their football IQ was. I was just going to go in there and tell everybody starting with a blank slate. We're going to teach this and coach this and build this program in this way and kind of share what that looked like. And if you're interested in buying in, I'll give you what I consider the roadmap, the trajectory to get where we want to get as a program. And that was, having a great experience and winning CIF championships. And so, it was a combination of giving those guys a blank slate, but also saying, hey, the scaffolding is going to be demanding. We're going to hold you accountable. We're going to up what probably was done here before, just as far as the workload and commitment level. And then it was a bunch of guys buying in. Not everybody. Next, from staff, coaches, players, returning players, administrators, but the people that did buy in, I think had a great experience, and it was, culminated with us winning a lot of games at the end. But it also helped to have a lot of really good players. Now, it wasn't just, hey, try this weight room thing and try this walkthrough thing. It was, hey, we got better players. We were able to give some pretty good players the ball, and I just let them do what they do.
Absolutely. Yeah, from watching your team from afar and actually going to a practice, I remember going to a practice, having a call sheet and seeing how you called stuff. I noticed you did a lot of unorthodox stuff from the standpoint of going empty and doing a lot of QB runs, right? Not that many people will commit to doing that. What was your thought process there, and how did it give you guys a competitive advantage?
To be honest with you, the system was built to be as flexible and as adaptive as possible at what I would consider the high school level. And so that means that we could have the quarterback run if the quarterback was a good enough athlete to do that. I made no bones about it, that I was going to try to get the best player the ball as often as possible. And when he was tired, the next guy was going to get the ball that I thought was the best player. And so it really was it was just a thing about being flexible, adaptive. We could get into Q run really easily. We could get into empty. It was all signal based. It was all super up tempo from a teaching standpoint. That didn't mean that we went up tempo all the time, but it was built with a full throttle, kind of go as fast as you can mentality. And, it just gave us the opportunity over the course of what was really 3-ish football seasons, depending on how you count COVID. We really went the full spectrum from, being a 10 personnel RPO team to being a very heavy personnel run play action team. and kind of just leaning into whatever our player strengths were. I made a bunch of mistakes as a coach, but one of the things that I felt like I did really well towards the end was I made sure that we had the 11 best players on the field as often as possible. And so I didn't care if it was 0 personnel. I didn't care if it was 23 personnel. We're going to have our best football players out there, and we were going to be tough to handle.
Yeah, you guys were impressive, man. Just watching that run and then going to spend a little time with you there. This will be my last question about Patrick Henry, then we'll kind of pivot to some other football IQ related stuff. But as far as your language, when you guys had players on the defensive side come over to offense, vice versa, did you communicate coverage calls, front calls on the defense side the same way you would when you look at the opposing defense so that your players could kind of carry that information over better?
Not necessarily. I mean, we were such a small program too. Everybody basically played both ways. The way that we would talk about it offensively was a little bit more universal language, like, even, odd, bare, covered, uncovered, closed, open, access things, as opposed to technique specific things that we would do defensively. And so there wasn't a lot of carryover like that. But one thing I will say from an offensive perspective at the line of scrimmage at the high school level, I just loved making sure that our offensive line and really run unit / pass pro unit felt like they had the answers to whatever they saw. Like I felt in California, in San Diego, we would see so many like boutique defenses. Like it was just like, it felt like we'd never seen this before on film. Maybe it was because we were doing unique things that they had to do unique things, but I wanted them to feel like just because we hadn't seen it on film didn't mean that they didn't have answers to it. So just making sure they had answers to what we're going to do if someone's in your gap, what we're going to do if someone's head up, what we're going to do if someone's off the ball, what if they're going to stunt, what if they're going to move late, stem, all those types of things. I wanted our unit up front to have the answers to the tests so that they could communicate, but realize, before the snap, everything is in pencil. And then after the snap, they had answers to whatever we were going to see, and they could play fast and they could be violent. And they just played with a lot of confidence. I felt like that was the best version of us. And so that was kind of how we worked the language to be able for them to communicate and solve problems at the line of scrimmage.
Oh, that's great. I like the whole pencil analogy. I think it's always a good way to approach it, because smart defenses don't just charge the gap that they're lined up in, right? They move and they make the picture change for the offense. So that's awesome. So, football IQ is layered. There's spatial awareness, there's emotional control, there's pattern recognition, like multiple brains on the field. How do you teach that to quarterbacks? There's different methods, right? Whether it's VR, classroom, walking through. So, just from a 10,000 foot view, how do you teach that to quarterbacks?
Yeah, at the high school level, I mean, this is probably no shock to anybody, but we literally did a thing called quarterback school. And so, the quarterbacks would start before anybody else. Every year was different as far as what the schedule looked like, but because you're out of season in California, no high schools could play high school sports on Sundays. So we would do the quarterback school on Sunday and have it as a club or have it as, some sort of non-scholastic event where if you wanted to play quarterback, you had to be there. It was one of those kind of things where, it's going to impact your ability to play if you're not at these things, because this is where we're going to go over everything from how to throw the ball, playing from the ground up, our stances, snaps, reads, footwork, drops. And so you build that over the course of what was sometimes 4 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks. You start incorporating the perimeter into that. So you start getting timing, route depths, expectations, spacing, formations. And then you would overlay that with now let's talk about the defense, what we master, what we're doing. And so things like that, you just kind of build it as every coach or teacher loves a good progression. And so it's just one of those things where you overlay it. I always tried to push the quarterbacks so that they always felt like they were challenged in what we were doing. I never wanted it to feel boring, but I also didn't want to go so fast that they were drowning and weren't having success. And the beautiful thing about coaching at the high school level is that you only have a small number of guys. You can really individualize the quarterback stuff as opposed to, the camp circuit or, things where you don't get a lot of time with these guys. You get a huge chunk of months of working with people. So you can really see improvement. And every quarterback has their own journey, whether you're working, maybe arm path, maybe release, maybe footwork, maybe timing, maybe rhythm, maybe just making decisions and realizing that I wasn't going to, make every quarterback the same. I had some guys who I say all the time, I said it yesterday to my Little League baseball team, but if you can count to three, you can play for me. Well, we had some guys that maybe couldn't count to three, playing quarterback. And so I wasn't going to sit back there and make them go through a full field read if that wasn't what they could do. And so might be a one and run type guy. It might be a 1-2 run. It might be one check down, and just being fluid and flexible with what that looked like, but also being really intentional and making sure that they spent months. Anybody who played quarterback for me at that program spent months in the offseason learning the program, learning the language, and then was held to a really high standard because you touch the ball every single time. You touch the whole program, the whole community is invested in what you're holding every single snap. And so being really cognizant of what that looks like, learning the fundamentals, but then overlaying what you're talking about, the decisions, the emotional element of it, how important it is to be smart in what those things look like, and not talking in generics like, oh, throw it to the open guy. Well, what is that? What does that look like in our program? How can we determine if that's a good decision? What's a money decision? And when and where to do those types of things. And just being really, I tried to always say, I want to be really explicit. I want to be really clear. If you're muddy about a read, a play, then I haven't done my job teaching it, preparing it. So we're not going to call that play. And so we had enough volume that we found stuff that would work.
I love it. And in regards to spot checking, or even let me back up, when you started the QB school, did you have an entry test or anything that you tested them on in regards to what they knew? Was there anything like that? And then how did you test them throughout the QB school?
Yeah, so there was no entrance exam. The entrance exam was, you got to show up. I can tell you don't want to play quarterback if you're not going to be here every single week, because I'm not going to go over what I did last time just because you weren't here, type of thing. They had homework, essentially. Like, I'm a big flashcard guy. I think you're a flashcard guy. I would make them do flashcards. I would teach them what the expectation is for the flashcard, what it would look like. I'd give them a template. And then whatever we installed, they would have to have the flashcard, and they would have to show me the flashcard the next week. And it's one of those things where if you don't put the work in to do a quality flashcard and what's supposed to be on there, not only are you not learning it while you're creating it, but then you got to study it. You got to be a master. And I can tell, I used to tell people all the time, I'm like, I can tell if you don't know what you're doing just by not lining up correctly, especially like a wide receiver or tight end, running back. Like, those are the easiest guys because they just don't know where to line up. Now, maybe you're in an offense where it doesn't matter and you're just lining up like recess, but most high level offense has pretty detailed splits. And so you mess up the splits, bro, you just don't play. You're making my job easy. You should be wanting to make my job hard. Who's on the field? Can I get more touches? If you don't know where to line up, you're just not going to play, bro. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, I love that. And then, even taking a step further for receivers, no blocky, no catchy. There's some expectations, right? That's like the basics, being able to line up. That's good stuff. Today's episode is presented by American Football IQ. One of the biggest challenges coaches face right now is this. Players are seeing more football than ever, but they are not always learning how to understand the game in full context. They watch clips, they see highlights, but they don't always learn how to recognize coverage, identify fronts, understand leverage, or connect what is happening before and after the snap. That is why tools that help teach football IQ matter. American Football IQ is built to help players learn the game visually through flashcards that train recognitions, coverages, fronts, protections, gap control, the kind of things players have to see faster if they want to play fast. This is not just about memorizing terms. It's about helping players recognize patterns quicker, process information faster, and play with more confidence when the ball is snapped. So whether you're coaching quarterbacks, skill guys, linemen, or just looking for a better way to teach the game, check out American Football IQ and see how they are helping players build real understanding that carries to the field. You can start with Volume 1 or get the full bundle at AmericanFootballIQ.com. There is also an online community that can be accessed on the AmericanFootballIQ.com website, where each flashcard has a video explaining it in more detail with film. Play fast. Have you ever done draft prep?
Not like formally. I've been asked to do draft prep by people who kind of live in that space. I think it's a very unique space to live in. I mean, I did draft prep when I was going through the draft.
Right. If you were doing draft prep right now, JT, and you had a stable of guys that you would bring in, would it be just like your QB school for your high school guys, or what would that look like as far as the classroom stuff?
So I've never done it. I've been asked to participate in classroom sessions for guys, and it was kind of where they felt I had expertise. So maybe like come in and teach a certain system. Like if you think you're going to go to a West Coast system or you think you're going to go to a digit system, get a kind of introduction or basically just do the installs for whatever you know so that they're not hearing it for the first time at mini camp or at the visit or whatever, insert whatever you're doing. Some of the best invitations I've ever gotten is kind of guys go into specific areas. So things that I wish I would have done coming into the league. I wish I would have had like access to a pass pro kind of in-depth school teaching, those types of things. And I've had guys ask me to do that for their draft people. And it just hasn't, like, it's just not what I do. But I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like if I was coming nowadays for the draft, I would love to have like an in-depth NFL level pass protection offense kind of comprehensive course that I could dig into to give me a head start when I go to whatever team I go to. And so that would be something that I would kind of like lean into, that pass protection world, just because I do think it's so important at that level to have just a deep, nuanced take of what you're supposed to do, what you're not only the communication part of it, like making the calls, but then having a trust and understanding of, hey, this is where I'm hot. These are my tools. These are my answers. These are my what ifs to be able to go in there and play fast, because that's the difference for a lot of veteran guys. They just have so many reps, so many different ways to be able to answer different kind of questions to the test.
Yeah, I'm kind of going into pass pro. How would you bucket the different pass pros that exist? I mean, you've got big on big, so like what are the different classifications of pass pros that you're aware of?
Well, I feel like most people live in the slide world, some version of the slide world. So how you classify it as far as how many people are involved. So are we talking about like 5-man pass protection? Are we talking about half slide, full slide? How many people are involved in the slide? I think the kind of the easy way to think about slide protection is, we're sliding 2 players. Like we're turning to 55 or whatever. Well, in reality, it's not man to man out there. You're sliding towards a defender, but you're still talking about areas and zones, how they're going to pass off stunts, how they're going to pass off games, and just having a deeper understanding of what those slides look like and then where your issues are. Is your issue towards the slide? Is your issue away from the slide? Are we talking about, what's the back doing? How many people are involved in the pass protection? And we're only talking about drop back. And drop back is kind of the easiest version. Okay, once you master 5, 6, 7, maybe 8-person pass protection, now we got to talk about play pass. We got to talk about play action. And that's where you get into crazy nuance and detail at the league level, because every team is going to do every version of that differently. Are they going to block it like the run? Are they going to have different rules? What are we asking the quarterback to do as far as zero checks, pressure checks? Is it different in the play pass world? And so just having a detailed take for that, to me, I think gives guys a huge advantage as they kind of keep going up in levels of football.
No doubt. I think anybody that could understand where the strengths and weaknesses of their pass pro are and how they access those quick rhythm throws, whether they're built-in quick rhythm throws or side adjustments based off of the defense bringing 4 to a side, what have you. I think that definitely gives somebody a leg up. That's good stuff.
As a quick one-off to that, a good example anecdotally for me is coming into the league at Davis, we ran a lot of 6-person half slide pass pro. So basically I understood it playing quarterback, like as long as they don't bring 7, I should be fine. Like I didn't really know like where the backs duel is, who's who in the zoo, what do I do versus bear? What do I do versus, everybody covered? I just kind of knew like there's a safety back there. I'm kind of fine. Well, then I got to the league and realized we had over 20 different pass protections. And so when I asked our offensive line coach to do, he probably was pissed at me. Jack Henry, great dude, was basically after every Friday's practice, like Friday, the short day in the league, he would spend a half hour with me or an hour, I forget, going over one pass protection that week. So I would get this super deep dive for an hour with the guy who teaches it, coaches it at the highest level, one-on-one. I could ask all my dumbass rookie questions, and he would sit there and just one-on-one with me, talking ball at a high level like that. And that was something where I was just like, man, this is some of the best stuff I'm ever going to get. I can't encourage guys quarterbacks specifically, to really dive into their O-line coach and what they can offer when he's got some time.
Absolutely. That's something I've told my quarterbacks, as a play caller, even as a quarterback myself. I remember going from junior college ball to New Mexico State, and we had all of our plays written out versus the different looks, and we'd have to put it on a piece of paper, what checks we were going to make. And we would be changing the protection and kind of learned a ton at that point. But, going forward into coaching, that's something I would tell guys as well. Spend as much time with the O-line coach as possible. Become buddies with those guys for sure. As far as coaches that you've either worked with or coached you, who are some of the ones that really drilled into football IQ? Now, I know you talked about Mike McCarthy, but what other coaches that you've been around really drilled the football IQ and who really taught it the best?
I think it's just so ingrained at the highest level that it's just, you don't even realize that you're getting kind of a master's level football every single day, every single meeting. It's basically grad school, doc school every day where you sit around a small table and your expectations that exactly what you're supposed to do for damn near every look, coverage wise, pressure wise, is drilled into you. I had great coaches at the highest level, the guys who I think were like the most demanding. You got, I would say guys like Mike Martz, just because the volume of stuff, it goes from, maybe carrying a handful of concepts at a high school level to, whatever, let's just insert a number, 50 concepts, maybe on a play call sheet for a college level, to carrying 200 drop back passes. And the thing I think that was the most demanding with Mike Martz was that the reads would change every week. One week it might be, hey, we're going to read dagger off rotation. The next week might be, hey, we don't like dagger because, they run a different iteration of middle field closed zone. They're running backer versus buzz and they're carrying the seam or something, And so you'd have to change the read and you'd have to be like, wait, who are we playing this week? What's the read on this? That part of it was challenging. And those, you'd get the read just sitting around a table, be four of us sitting around a table, and he'd say, hey, this week we're reading this different. We're reading this different. We're reading this like this. And you got to be able to go to the walkthrough on the practice that afternoon and read it and get ready for the game. And so just being super detailed with those types of things are things that I think you can't get if you don't experience that. And then you volume that by 200. And now all of a sudden it's it's going to be mentally challenging. You're going to have to do a lot of quiet work to make sure that you're ready to go at a competitive level that weekend.
So you mentioned flashcards for yourself. What other things did you do to mentally and visually prepare yourself to be able to then go execute if your number was called?
I think for me, it was a lot of quiet work. That just means spending time with the plan, feeling comfortable with it, being able to, first off, like verbally, like vomit it out in the huddle to make sense, but then be able to play it quickly too as you walk to the line of scrimmage, making sense of what you're going through. When I was learning offense, I always used to try to learn the offense formations first, then concepts, and then kind of the details of whatever, we're trying to do run game wise, footwork wise, those types of things. So when I sat there, I used to have a quarterback coach, Adam Gaze, who used to always say anytime he would give me the play, I would blink like 3 times. And every time, because he would tell me the play, and then I would blink like formation, motion shifts, play. And so I could really quickly visually see it in my head to be able to then go say it in the huddle and then go play it. You got to do those 3 things pretty damn fast to know what the hell's going on. And half the time I would tell Adam I couldn't understand what the hell he was saying in my helmet. So, you got to like fill in the gaps as far as, what you even hear sometimes. And so, a good story off that, he probably learned this from Mike Martz, but Mike Martz was notorious for he would say a play. He'd say like, whatever, like double right, Z left, zip, and just kind of like mumble off to the side and walk away. And he'd expect you to deal with it. You either solve it, you get it right, the plan well enough that just by the shift in formation, what the play is, or you're exposed. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You can't handle a little bit of tension, a little bit of things not going your way. And so, those types of things are just par for the course when you're dealing with guys at that level who want to make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can to be ready to go.
Well, that's awesome. I've spent time with a bunch of different coaches. I remember having a couple drinks with a former NFL quarterback coach, and he talked about a well-known QB in regards to how that individual would get distracted and lose their vision after play faking, right? And then when they had to get their eyes back on their read key, they could not process the information. And so what they ended up doing was any type of play fake ended up being a jet sweep, being something in front of his face where he can then keep eyes on the read area or the defender read. Have you ever experienced anything like that with a player? Have you ever had a teammate that perhaps had a diagnosed issue that the coaching staff knew about? And then what fixes, existed with that?
There were definitely, especially when you're the backup. So I was the backup quarterback for the vast majority of my NFL career. There were definitely times where we would be in installs or talking about what we expected to see on Sundays. A lot of it is about we're turning to protection, where we feel good, where we're in issues. And I was around one quarterback, especially in 5-person protection. He loved to always protect the middle of the field. And so he would inevitably have potential hot issues on both sides. I just hate playing quarterback like that. Like I just, it doesn't make sense. Like I would never want to take a snap and feel like I got to check both sides before I get my eyes to the first read. I grew up, I feel comfortable blocking up one side, usually away from the first read, so I can get my eyes to the first read, especially if I have a hot answer over there. But this guy loved playing hots on both sides. And I remember sitting in the meetings going like, yo, we're going to get blasted at some point. Like at some point, like I just don't think you can do, this every single time you see. And that's me shaking my head crazy every time you take a snap, especially if you're in gun and you got to take your eyes off the defense. And sure as hell, like I would always tell the coordinator, I'm like, hey, if I have to go in there and play, bro, we're not doing that. Like we're changing. The point is going to go to one side or the other. And he was like, oh, it's fine. We're fine. We're fine. And sure enough, you go in there, he gets blasted. Now you're like, oh, I guess, am I going in? Like all this, and it might work for, 90% of the year, but the couple times that it doesn't work and you got a free runner that you're not aware of, it just made me super uncomfortable. And so there are certain things like that, especially at that level where, hey, the starter is comfortable doing something, they're going to do it. Even if I might think it's unsound, even if it doesn't make sense to me, they're not asking me what I want the starter to do. They want the starter to feel like he's got all the answers that he wants to play at the highest level. But it was one of those things for me. I remember being like, hey man, make sure you got your rib protector going. This is not for long if we keep doing this.
I'm more with you. I'd rather be able to turn it one way and know I just got to move over to the heart of that protection slide, right? Even if you got 6 up and you're going full slide one way, if you got a quick clock in your head and you start moving over with the protection, then at least you got a better shot. I'm not a big fan of that. So pivoting here, you kind of brought up some funny stuff already, but what's a funny story that you have from your time as a coach or time as a player that you'd like to share?
There was one time. So like the locker room is a very like sacred place just because it's supposed to be like the players, coaches aren't really in there. Every team's a little bit different. Every organization's a little bit different. The quarterback room is a very sacred place where, you expect everything that's said in the quarterback room to stay in the quarterback room type of thing. Not always the case, but with that, you usually form a pretty good relationships with the vast majority of quarterbacks. There weren't a whole lot of dudes that I would classify as like, oh, that guy's, not the greatest teammate, not the greatest thing. So you can joke around. And so when I was in Detroit, the rookie quarterback that year was Drew Stanton. He went on, had a great career played along, good dude. And he probably wasn't having the greatest rookie year. I'm not sure, Mike Martz was probably not his biggest fan. And he was on IR. And so the room was a unique room. The room was John Kitna playing, me backing up, Dan Orlovsky was the third, and then Drew was on IR. Adam Gase was our quarterback coach, and Mike was a coordinator. So just a unique room, like a bunch of different type of dudes in there. But Drew and I think we had our lockers next to each other. And at that point, you would get all sorts of like flyers, reminders, like on your stool, like, hey, like we got a meeting, whatever, a scallon, itinerary, whatever, like a bunch of stuff every single day on your stool after practice. And I was just crumple it up and throw it in Drew's locker. Not necessarily his rookie hazing, more just like his locker's right next to me. And he got pissed. Of course, you get pissed. And so one of the last days, the last week of the season, we were no good. So the season was going to be over for us after the last game. He taped up my whole locker, like with athletic tape, and filled my locker with trash. I'm like, hey man, like I did it to you all year, like for sure. Great, you got me. Well, he probably did it a few too many days early because we still had days left in the season. So I decided that I was buddies with the guys who run the clubhouse, the equipment guys. So during practice, I had one of the equipment guys take his car and move it to like the maintenance shed, like big campus over there, like on the other side of the campus. So after practice, he comes out. He immediately knows his car's gone. He immediately knows that, I probably did it. And I was like, like trying to make a joke of it. I'm like, yeah, I moved it down to the mall, like a couple, miles down the road. You go get it. So he and Dan Orlovsky go driving around trying to find it, like all over Dearborn. And so finally, a couple hours go by, he texts me like, hey, where is it for real? Like, I need to find my car. And I was like, actually, I left your keys with Mike Martz. Like, go, you got to go get the keys from Mike. And he was already kind of like, not the greatest, pissed. He's on IR. So he goes to talk to Mike, and Mike's like, Mike was already probably a little frustrated with it. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, obviously I have your car keys. Like, stop bothering me. Like, this is not it. All to realize a couple hours later that it was just like around the corner in the maintenance shed, and his keys are there. He was pissed at me for a while after that one, but it was a good one. No, the jokes like that, like that's the type of stuff that I always enjoyed the most about the locker room, where you can have fun with guys, but also push each other and get better.
That's the thing about the game that people outside of it don't realize that's one of the funnest parts, right? Building those relationships and those fun stories you get after one another. So closing here, JT, you're a big football guy, well known across the country. You do a tremendous job explaining the game. Fans, they consume your content. NFL coaches consume your content. So you're very well accomplished in that space. But what draws your inspiration outside of football?
I'm pretty lucky where this job is super flexible. The commute is amazing. So I got a lot of time on my hands in that regard. And we've got 3 young dudes over here. They all are pretty heavy into sports. So I just get to be a part of, their journey in sports. Sports to me was a great trampoline in my life. I really enjoyed it, had a great experience playing youth sports, not just football, but everything you can imagine across the board. And so being part of their journey, whether that's, coaching them when they're super young, and then kind of just transitioning into being a dad in high school and watching them have their own journey with athletics, not necessarily with any end goal in mind, more of just, it taught me so much. I had such a great experience, made so many great friends, learned so many different things, that if they can fall in love with sports in some way, shape, or area in any fashion that I did, that's one of the things that I just really, really enjoyed, playing dad with these guys, seeing them do their thing, seeing them find their lane, and being really fortunate to have the time to be able to do that and cherish those opportunities with those guys. So I throw a lot of BP. I put a lot of balls in the pitching machine, enjoy catching, playing catch, and seeing these guys thrive in whatever they choose to do.
Love it, man. I appreciate everything, man. Appreciate you taking time to do this, and look forward to this episode dropping.
Appreciate the offer.
Thanks for joining us for Football IQ, presented by American Football IQ. If you want to help your players see the game better, think faster, and understand more, go check out American Football IQ and what they're building for players, coaches, and parents. That's at AmericanFootballIQ.com, or click the link in the description. Follow all we're doing at Coach and Coordinator Network, and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.